Welcome to Outrage Astrology. I'm Mike.
And I'm Brittany.
And we're going to be covering an array of astrological topics for y'all guys. That's what we do. And in our first astrological segments, we are going to be going over one of the most popular but narrowly understood aspects of astrology. One of the most useful ways that astrology can be used, and that's relationship astrology.
Yeah, we drink and we know things.
Yeah, so this is for all you thirsty hoes and all you fuckboys out there. This is
episode 1.
Yeah, episode 1. And relationship astrology is actually incredibly important. And if you want to figure out like the types of challenges that you as a couple could face, the type of energies that y'all produce when y'all come together, and I mean, you can really gauge like how a relationship's going to go with a potential partner if you just take a look at their natal chart, play it against yours, and you can kind of just get a view of how everything works out. But relationship astrology is a very, very complicated topic, and before you even want to start playing your chart against theirs or trying to figure out what the dynamics between the two of y'all are, you want to check out who they are as a person. So
yeah, we're going to crush that whole preconceived notion of, am I compatible with a Gemini or a Libra?
Exist.
We're not going to do that. No,
you're no such thing as compatibility. So
yeah, we're not gonna do that. We're gonna give you the real shit. And at the very end, if you hang on and listen to the whole episode, I will tell you one of my little ways that I've learned to finagle a birth time out of someone that you can't get their birth time. So stay tuned for that.
Yeah. So okay. When you start diving into relationship astrology, the most important thing to understand about a relationship and its dynamics is that relationships are not all like, sunshine and fucking long walks on the beach and laying in bed for hours telling each other secrets and dying in each other's arms. Relationships are hard. Relationships, they cause you to change. The best relationships are the ones that cause you at least a little bit of pain, a little bit of discomfort, so that you can, learn about yourself. So then
you call us crying about it. Why is this shit not working out, man? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. You got to take that whole idealized concept of relationships that you see posted all over social media and just throw that shit out the window, because the best relationships kind of suck.
Fucking hard.
Yeah.
Yep. That's right. Okay, so Mike, that's a great segue for our first thing we're going to talk about is sign placements, and are they really relevant?
They are and they aren't. And to start off, if you want to check out somebody's natal chart, if you haven't ever done it before, you're going to want to snoop their birth information. I mean, at the least, you're going to want the day they're born. You're going to want where they were born and the year, of course. And then if you can sort of like, without coming off like a total fucking creep, and I'm pretty sure you have a strategy for getting this done, you need to find out their birth time. Because that's going to give you a wealth of information that just the date and location alone isn't going to give you. How would you go about doing that, Brittany?
Well, I'm saving my secrets until the end. They got to listen to us rant about this until
They got to get the time first.
They do. They have to get the time, but we'll get there. Okay, We'll get there. They can go pull all this up later, but yeah, Mike, you're right. So they can figure out at least where all the planets were when that person was born with just the year and the date, and you can start to put the pieces together. Now, you're not necessarily going to see all the stuff we're about to talk about with the houses in astrology, which are really, really important until you have that birth time, but you can still get a lot of information without it.
Yeah. So the first thing that you'll
why is it? So tell us, Mike, why is it that you can't just come to an astrologer and say, I'm a Scorpio and the dude I'm digging is a Leo. Are we going to work out? Why can't you do that?
Because just the concept that 1 out of every 12 people are exactly the same is nonsense. It's preposterous. People are extremely complex, and astrology allows for that. Everybody's natal chart's completely different. There won't be another person, after you're born, there won't be another person born with those exact same placements including the house and ascendant and all that stuff, for another 25,000 years. Everybody is totally different. So it's important to have, and when you actually do a natal chart, you see that somebody's sun's in Scorpio. All right, that person's a Scorpio. Big fucking whoop. Well, that sun's also in like the third house, which gives it like a little bit of a Gemini energy. And then it's got like hard aspects being made to Neptune and Saturn. So it kind of gives it this Pisces, Capricorn, Gemini kind of, like, everybody's is different.
Clusterfuck.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you'll check out where their sun's at. The sun's a little bit important because it's their vitality, it's how they show up in the world. It's a more masculine energy. It's the ego, and then there's the moon sign, and the moon sign's equally as important because it's the emotional nature. And it's looking at like hard aspects to the moon sign. You can really see where this person's like emotional hangups are at. Or you can look at Venus and you can see how this person expresses love or refuses to express love and deals with their own self-esteem issues. You can see their Mars sign to see what, their anger issues or their kink issues, or, if they're just...
Hell yeah. Can I throw in a little tidbit here?
What?
If you really want somebody who's going to get like do all the nasty things in bed you want to do, you need to look for how their Mars and Uranus are aspected. Because like Mars trine Uranus or Mars conjunct Uranus, like you're going to get somebody who's really kinky. So, if you're into that, you're gonna want to look at that, right?
Yeah, or on the upside, if you see somebody's Venus that's got a lot of aspects made to Uranus, or like a hard aspect or a conjunction, you're going to look at somebody that is really, really, really detached with how they express their love. And then a lot of times, not all the time, but a lot of times, you can see somebody that's into, playing both sides of the fence, if you know what I mean. You can see that
sometimes.
Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah, sometimes you can see that. So yeah, I mean, exactly. So if like you're talking about compatibility, you raise a really good point. So if you've got if you're a Sag, if you're like, let's say you're Sagittarius through and through, or you're just a Sagittarius moon, for example, and you meet somebody who's got Venus in a hard aspect to Saturn, they're probably going to work out really well for you compared to, somebody who's a Cancer moon, needs all that lovey-dovey, cuddle me, coddle me shit.
Oh, God.
Hey, some of us need love, man.
I can't deal with Cancer moon energy, no.
Well, we don't all have well, don't you have a Sagittarius descendant? Yeah. Yep. We don't all have that, man. Okay, so basically what you're saying, Mike, is that it's not necessarily are you compatible by does this sign go with this sign. It's who that person is as a whole, and does that really meet the needs of you and your chart?
And does that jive well with you? And then if you look at the compatibility between two people, you can see somebody with some horrendous aspects, but just by somehow the chemistry between the two of you can sort of either bring out those difficult characteristics through the combining of y'all's energy, or you can even mitigate those really hard aspects. Like, I've seen some really fucked up people have really, really, really long relationships where they're literally a complete piece of shit, but this person just gets that bullshit side of their personality and is able to handle it and tolerate it and even calm it down a little bit.
Yeah. So. Yeah, it depends on, and we'll get into that in our second episode. That's absolutely, we're going to be talking about synastry and how those charts, how do they mesh, and are you going to pull out each other's, ugly three-headed whatever, we're going to talk about if it's like pulling out all the nastiness in you, or if it's calming it down, if it's helping it grow. What is it really doing for you, and what is it doing for them?
No, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was reiterating, we gotta look at the disposition of the person.
Yeah, and you're going to see, because you have the different planets in different signs, so you'll have like Venus in a sign, Mars in a sign, Moon in the sign, yada, yada, yada. And those give you a little bit of an idea of the flavor of those parts of that person's planet, or that parts of that person's personality, but it's not going to give you everything, because... like, you'll see somebody who's got, Venus and Scorpio, and a lot of people think Venus and Scorpio is crazy, but
we're awesome.
Yeah, we kind of are.
We kind of are awesome. So something you guys will probably hear quite a bit
There's
in the
more to it.
podcast is how Mike and I are really proud of our most fucked up aspect, our Venus Pluto conjunction. So just,
Oh, God.
bear
Mine's
with
pretty sweet,
us.
though. Mine's a tighter orb than yours.
Yeah, by a degree, which we'll also fight over. But anyway, we'll one up each other. So Mike, what is as far as Mars placements, what Mars placements do you really, really not want to see in somebody's chart? Which Mars placement are you like, I'm going to go run and hide because XYZ?
You talking about Mars by aspect or Mars in sign?
Mars in a sign. What Mars sign do you most not want, you least want to see?
All right, so
Ah.
a lot of Scorpio Mars and the Scorpio Mars that are in earlier degrees, because it'll usually end up squaring my moon or squaring my Saturn.
Not you, man. Maybe I shouldn't have phrased it that way. Just, yeah, I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying. For you, the way
All
I
right,
asked
like
that
Cancer
question, like,
Mars.
yeah,
Okay.
like what exactly? Oh my God, that's exactly what I was gonna say. Cancer Mars. I
Yeah.
can't get down with Cancer Mars.
First of all, it's in detriment, and they like throw fits and scream and cry and stab you while they cry, and it's really difficult to deal with for me. Also, Taurus Mars. I mean, it depends on how it's aspected. I've actually got one of my best friends has Mars and Taurus, but I mean, if you really like the prospect of taking like 3 hours to get somebody to get the fuck up out of bed in the morning, then yeah, get yourself a Taurus Mars.
That's about right. Okay, so you want me to tell you the Venus that I just like, I can't get down. I guess I shouldn't say I can't get down with, but that I really don't want to see in a chart is I don't want to see a Venus in Aquarius. I don't want to.
Really?
I
Why?
really don't want
Well,
to see
'cause
it.
I know quite a few.
Yeah, well, I was with one for 4 years because they got love for everyone, man. Like
They cheat.
you want to come sit on my lap, baby?
I would say like not all. I wouldn't say all Venus and Aquarius is cheat. I mean, because you can't make a generalization on a sign for everybody. But all the ones that I
Right.
know,
They got a lot of
they cheat.
love.
They
Yeah.
cheat. They
Yeah.
cheat. They cheat. And if you show that you're like emotionally attached to them anyway, they'll run.
Right. So maybe we should go into the cheating aspects. I mean, maybe that's what we need to talk about because that's right where we're going.
Yeah, I mean, okay, yeah, you can actually yeah, because you're checking somebody's chart out first. You're snooping on their chart to find out what kind of person they are before you even start fucking with the synastry and the composite. So
Right.
yeah, you can check out the cheater aspects. Um, Generally, Venus and an air sign is really well known for cheating. They do. Not
Right.
all of them do. I mean,
Venus in Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
What about Venus in those houses? In the houses that are ruled by.
Venus in the 12th house is pretty well known for secret affairs.
Yeah, yeah.
What?
Anything 12 houses, right?
Yeah.
But think about it. I mean, what about people who've got like a third house Venus or a seventh house, not a seventh house Venus. Jog my memory here.
11th house.
Thank you. Yeah.
11th house Moon and 11th house Venus are pretty well known for for being a cheater as well.
But their motivations will be different because by the nature of how it's aspected and which house it's in, you're gonna see why they cheat. Some people are gonna cheat just because they can, and some people are gonna cheat because they feel like they need a new toy. So yeah, how they're aspected is gonna make a difference there for sure.
Yeah,
So what?
the Venus in the 12th house is more about having just hidden motivations and hidden desires. And in the 12th house, such a subconscious house, they don't really know where it's coming from. They're sort of acting on impulse. They're acting on urges that they don't really understand themselves. 11th house is Aquarian energy, and Aquarian energy is very much known for being detached.
Yeah.
And having the Moon, Venus, actually even Mars, they'll have sex with all their friends. I mean, they don't they don't see things in traditional terms. Now that can be downplayed. Like let's say they have some aspects to Saturn and stuff like that. It's gonna really tone that down. Like if you got like Venus and Aquarius conjunct Saturn, I wouldn't pin you down as a cheater.
Right.
But if you've got Venus in Aquarius and it's got Jupiter aspects, or you've got Venus and Gemini, there's a bunch of Jupiter aspects. I'm gonna.
So yeah, you make a great point. So when you're looking at a chart, whatever Saturn is touching is generally going to be very much toned down because it's restricting it. And then the other and then the other planet, that people tend to look at very quickly is Pluto. And whatever Pluto is touching is going to make it obsessive. It's going to almost do the opposite. It's going to make it an obsessive, compulsive, hungry need for it. Would you agree with that?
Oh yeah, but I would say though that the conjunction and the trine and sextile, they're not as apparent. Well, the conjunction's really apparent, but the square and the opposition from Pluto to a personal planet, be it Venus or Mars especially, that's really you're gonna see a lot more of the negatives associated with Pluto. When you see Pluto's an interesting planet to take into account because even if it's got flowing aspects to a personal planet, that doesn't, even though it's an easy aspect, it doesn't change what Pluto is.
That's right.
It's
it just makes the energy. It just gives the energy an easier time getting there.
Yeah.
So if you're gonna go out and fuck around on somebody, like don't go fuck around on somebody who's got like a moon trine Pluto, because they're gonna figure your shit out.
Or if they've got like a moon square, or they've got like a moon square Pluto or a Mars square Pluto, they're gonna absolutely freak out and explode.
It'll kill you.
And still probably not let you go.
Well, Mars squaring Pluto is a whole nother bag of shit. Let's talk about Mars squaring Pluto. Okay, so I'm gonna do this is true for the guys too. I mean, women can be really crazy. Oh, but I mean, technically
they do more damage.
The men can usually, I mean, unless we're going like, Lizzie Borden on you, technically you're going to worry more about the men who have a Mars
with a wet noodle.
You're typically, don't do your own sound effects, man. We're typically going to worry more about Mars squaring Pluto, something like that. So when Mars and Pluto are aspecting one another, you're going to, red flag right there. We're going to worry about violence in the chart, the propensity towards it, in that temper. We're also going to worry about that when we see Moon in Gemini, because you can flip a switch at any second. So I have a good friend right now who just started dating a guy that she thinks is the best thing since sliced bread. And he has a Moon in Gemini that is in opposition to Uranus. And I'm like, baby, you got to watch him. Because she's really good at getting into relationships with guys that don't treat her too nice, and that one scares me. Would that scare you, Mike?
Well, Moon in Gemini, it's also a notable cheater placement, just so you know. But I've seen it go both ways with Moon in Gemini. You want to see if there's any malefics aspecting it, and if there is, yeah, those emotions, because that's the thing about air moons is their emotions are very they're so intellectualized that when they actually experience emotions, it's like they short circuit. Like there's a person that I know that's actually a part of my family, and she is known for extremely violent tendencies. Like I'm talking like this lady, and she has a Moon in Gemini, and it's
Moon in Geminis, man. They're nothing to fuck around with. You gotta watch it.
Some of them are cool.
But not when they're opposing Uranus.
Well, when it's opposing, a Uranus it kind of just gives them more of an attached vibe. When you see it with a malefic though, or Mars especially, you can watch somebody like have complete freakouts, and it's pretty scary. Like this woman that is related to me. When I was a kid, she got upset with my dad, and she drove up to our house while I was home alone, and took a butcher knife and carved the word die into our door. Now, she had Moon and Gemini square exactly Mars and Pisces. And when you see somebody that has Mars squaring the Moon in any sign, but in Gemini it can be exceptionally unpredictable, I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
When you see, or Scorpio, goddamn. Uh, if you see Mars squaring the Moon, you see somebody that can their ego drives, their way of their aggression. It's so at odds with their emotional state that it's just they're prone to blowups, huge, massive blowups.
Yep. So
Now, what?
now, how do you feel about Librans? Because I feel like Librans are like the lesser version of the Gemini moon, especially a Libra moon, a Libra Venus. I feel like they just really want to put their cock in something.
Well, it's okay. So one, I know a lot of Libras, and I'm friends with a lot of Libras, and they make decent friends, and they do. And it's not that they just literally, it's like I'm
Don't
in love
defend your
with
friends.
you. Now I'm in love with her.
Her,
Oh,
right?
look, bird. Oh, I'm in love with that bird too. And it's just with Libra placements.
I love lamp.
With Libra placements, I just kind of there. Is there do they have a backbone at all, or do they just
No,
are
they're just gonna accidentally really hurt your feelings when they like accidentally like really love your best friend too.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, not all of them are like that, but a lot of the ones, especially the Mr. Libra stellium that me and you have discussed before, uh, in the 12th house, nonetheless. Uh, they definitely they become infatuated very quickly, and then they move on to something else, and then they move on to something else, and they move on to something else.
Yeah, so there's a really good reason why we're discussing the moon signs of people more heavily than the sun signs, right?
I'm
I
discussing
mean,
placements in general. Like you talking like Mercury, Sun, Moon, Venus,
right, right.
Mars,
But we keep
personal life.
saying, but how I'm looking at this is the moon in these particular air signs is kind of what we've been,
Yeah.
talking about, breaking down. And the reason is because moon signs are your emotional self. They are your gut instinct, your reaction. And when we're talking about cheating, a lot of times this is not something that people like plot out. I mean, I don't think most people go say, I want to have an affair today. I mean, there are those, don't get me wrong, but most of the time it's like, I didn't really mean to, but I just kind of started talking to this person I work with, or, that I go to school with, or whatever, and they go off on this whole tangent with them. And that's how it begins. Or, they were at a party and, they get drunk or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah.
But the point is, the moon sign is going to talk about how you react to things on a gut level, instinctual level. So when I'm talking about something like cheating, if somebody has a Libra sun or a Gemini sun versus a Libra or Gemini or Aquarius moon or sun, the moon is going to weigh a little bit more heavy to me on their instincts.
Aquarius moons aren't as bad, I've noticed. But also, I mean, like me and you both are from the Pluto and Scorpio generation, so most Aquarius moons, for not all of them, but depending on where the moon sits, it'll be forming a hard aspect to Pluto, and then sometimes even an aspect to Saturn. So I think that kind of that really really hones in their emotional intensity when it comes to their relationships. So just from our generation particularly, Moon and Aquarius is not as bad, actually.
This is a good point. And our generation is, you're going to tell
Well,
everybody,
hey, we're young. Pluto and Scorpio is like in right now.
yeah, so we're talking about, in your late 20s, early to mid 30s. Yeah. Okay, so what are some red flags? We sort of briefly mentioned Mars and Pluto and how that gets kind of scary. We talked a little bit about, Mars and Scorpio because they don't ever want to let go of anything. What else we got?
Let's see. What would make me want to run? Let's see. Let's say the moon in hard aspect to Mars, that can show, depending on the person, some emotional outbursts. If they've got Uranus in hard aspect to the moon or to Venus, that's somebody that needs a lot of freedom. If you see Neptune, let's talk about Neptune. Which is pretty much the same as seeing a bunch of planets in the 12th house.
So you guys need to know real quick how Mike feels about Neptune. Mike, tell us how you feel about Neptune.
Fuck Neptune.
This is how Mike
will fuck you up so bad, especially if it's really prominent in the synastry or the composite, which we will talk about in the next episode. Neptune has this way of making you feel, and if you have if this person has Neptune in hard aspects to personal planets like the moon or Venus, or there's a lot of 12th house influence, or even a lot of Pisces influence, this person is they're so, when it comes to their relationships, they're relating, they are so trapped in fantasy land.
Yeah.
And it's bad. It's
Neptune. Neptune. So my little personal story with Neptune is I have a really good friend, not a friend anymore, I should say, but had a really good friend who has the sun opposing Neptune. So the sun is in Cancer, and the moon was in, or sorry, it's not moon. Neptune was in Capricorn. And they're opposing one another. So what we get right there is the martyr complex. This is the I am always the victim. Let me just go cry about this in a corner and listen to depressing music because everybody hates me. And if you try to this is not a person who is going to own up to their shit. And that's what you really need in a relationship, is somebody who goes, man, I'm going to own up to my shit and I want to be better for you. I want to be better for me. And somebody with a lot of Neptune is not going to do that for you.
They don't like reality. They don't enjoy reality. They want to hide from reality. They want to live. It can go a couple different ways too. Like Neptune being in hard aspect to their Mercury, or Neptune being in hard aspect to their Sun. They can, or even Mars. There is this sort of there's a distortion of reality. Like they'll tell lies and believe their own lies. Like they'll legitimately believe them. Or if something's going wrong in their life, they'll over exaggerate it to the point to where it's like, oh my God, everything, every life is coming down on me. Everything's so hard. I can't deal with it. And it can go a different way. They can be the most, people with heavy Neptune can be the most compassionate people.
Yeah, we're not saying Neptune is bad. We're just saying this is the dark side of Neptune.
Well, that's the thing, is Neptune, it always starts out on the dark side, and they have to work through it in order to become a balanced individual. And
so how do you feel about Neptune in the 7th house?
Or
a Neptune that is the ruler of the 7th house. So like me, I have Pisces ruling my 7th house. So Neptune is my 7th house ruler. So either or, Neptune in the 7th, or a Pisces cusp on the 7th house.
Oh, let me tell you about that shit. You see, okay, so if somebody has Neptune prominent when it comes to the relationship houses, or Neptune in the 7th, or anything of that nature, you see somebody that will become the martyr within their relationships. These are the I'm not saying you do this, Brittany, but who knows, maybe you do.
I'm gonna tell everybody what I do in just a minute.
They will literally, if they're the kind of spouse that has the alcoholic husband that they just keep making excuses for and won't leave. Or they're the kind of one that every time they get into a relationship, oh my God, I found my soulmate. This is my perfect match. They become completely delusional about the relationship. And it's nothing ever matches up to their expectations of what the relationship should be like.
Bingo.
And then it leads to this horrible sense of disillusionment and disappointment, and it's terrible.
It's not as well. So you're right. It is a. So I have, like I said, I have Pisces on my seventh house cusp, which means Neptune rules my seventh house, and
And
what that.
Jupiter.
Yeah, and Jupiter. It's true. It's true. So what this does, Jupiter, by the way, is the classical ruler of Pisces.
Yeah,
So
the child.
some of these signs will have more than one ruler because there's classical ruler, and then when we discovered new planets, we're like, oh, where are we going to put them? We're going to put them there. So Neptune ruled seventh house for me has made this, yes, a little bit of a, now I'm a little bit more mature. I've kind of figured some shit out, but it has definitely given the people that I'm with this idea of, I can't ever meet your expectations. Your expectations are so high and it's never going to be good enough. So that's something that, you have to be aware of if you either have that or if you're with somebody that has that.
Yes. And even if you don't have it super prominent in your natal chart, if you meet somebody and they are hitting, their Neptune's hitting your personal planets, or it's coming through in the composite, they can actually drag those qualities out of, because everybody has Neptunian qualities in them. They're just at varying degrees.
Right.
And some people, it creates a serious problem in every relationship they ever come across, or it comes out only with certain people. So Neptune's, and some astrologers will disagree with me and say that Neptune is like the gateway to a true soulmate connection, where, oh, they can tell when I'm thinking about them. We can read each other's minds. And usually when I see that, especially coming from an astrologer, I'm just like, you are delusional.
Well, and I think this is a good time to mention, if you are in the general same age, within a couple years of each other, if you see conjunctions, and we're not doing synastry today, we're talking about natal charts, but just real quick, if you see your Neptune is conjuncting someone's Neptune, or your Pluto is conjuncting someone's Pluto,
Oh yeah, that doesn't mean shit.
that doesn't mean anything. It means that planet moves really slow. It hasn't moved that much since you were born, so don't worry about it. It means nothing. Move on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Okay, so seventh house rulers and the afflictions too. So I want to say something about this really quickly.
What are you going to
The,
talk about mine?
no, I'm not, well, kind of, actually, kind of. So, okay. So there's a lot of women who, especially women, who have this kind of idea about what a relationship is supposed to be, and that, once you fall in love, this person is never gonna like look at anybody else. Like, oh my God, they're just sold out to me. Like, that is not how men work. Okay? This is not how testosterone works. This is real shit. But anyway,
Yep.
the condition of the seventh house. You want to look at what planets are in the seventh house, and you want to look at the condition of the ruler of the seventh house. So we briefly kind of mentioned, I have Pisces on my seventh house, cusp, Neptune, and Jupiter rule it. So Mike, he has Sagittarius. Ruling his seventh house. So that means Jupiter rules it. Jupiter is more. I want more. Okay, I want more of everything. So if you have somebody who
Don't you
has,
dare try to tell me what to do, or keep me locked down.
yes, don't try to put him in a closet. Don't, nobody puts baby in a corner. Nobody puts Mike in a corner. Okay.
Yeah.
If you have Sagittarius there, you want your freedom, and you're okay with being in a relationship as long as they're still going to give you some freedom. And Jupiter in the seventh house is going to do something similar. But something I have noticed, I've read, in astrology books, but I've also seen it in practice, is that Jupiter in the seventh house is almost always going to guarantee that that person is going to be married more than once, or in a relationship that emulates marriage. Okay, so I'm talking about, you've lived with somebody for 7+ years, you're common law married. It's going to do that. If you have Uranus in the seventh house or aspecting the seventh house ruler, that is going to do something similar. That's kind of like
Oh, let
saying
me tell you about that.
you're gonna get divorced, baby. What?
I know somebody who has. So you would look at his chart, and you see all this wonderful stuff going on in the seventh house. You see the moon conjunct the descendant. and just all in these planets in Libra. So you'd think, oh, this person's just built for relationships. No, it's got Uranus in the seventh house too,
Yeah.
and the seventh house is in Sagittarius. The descendants in Sagittarius, and this is a person that loves relationships,
Of course they do.
loves to have like 50 of them in a year.
Right.
Relationships don't last more than 3 or 4 months with this particular individual, and Uranus in the seventh house destabilizes that area of life. It
It's a
also
monkey
allows you to
wrench.
detach really fast.
Yeah, yeah. Uranus, whatever it's touching, when I look at a chart, Uranus is the monkey wrench. Okay, whatever Uranus is hitting, it's gonna throw some chaos into it.
Yeah.
So something that we were discussing earlier is this. You can pretty much get a gauge of how many times you or somebody else is going to get married based on how the sun and moon are aspected. So really quickly, the sun is going to describe in a woman's chart how many times she's going to get married and the men she is married or in a very 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 committed relationship to. Okay, so if you see a woman with and we're talking about, quickly let me say, applying aspects. So when you look at astro.com and you pull up that chart and you go to extended chart selection, because if you do just natal chart, it's going to pull up one where it tells you the aspects, but it doesn't tell you how exact those aspects are. Okay, it's not going to tell you the orb, it's not going to tell you if they're applying or if they're separating. Okay, and applying in A, down there in that little box, that little graph, that means that the planet was approaching the other planet, and S is separating. That planet was moving past. So if you've got one applying aspect to your sun and you're a woman and that's the only applying aspect, you're going to get married one time. Okay, there's always exceptions to the rule, but this is what I've seen 95% of the time. Separating aspects, I don't care. But applying aspects, those are going to describe your relationships. If the orb is really, really wide, we're talking 8 to 10 degrees and beyond, really beyond, we don't even go beyond 10 degrees. That's not going to be a marriage. Okay, but if you're talking, a 3 degree, 5 degree, whatever applying, that's a marriage. If you're talking about, so for men, it works the same way. If the moon is making an applying aspect, that's one marriage. If it's making 2, 3, you're talking about multiple marriages. We're not including minor aspects. We're including major aspects.
What if somebody has a sun or moon that's unaspected? Because you do see that.
Right. So that's what we call a wild card. Okay. So if it's unaspected, it's going to be a little bit of a wild card. If it's got some minor aspects, or if Mike doesn't believe in interceptions, but I do.
No, I do
Okay.
not believe in intercepted houses, and
Yeah.
I could talk to you for hours about why I do not believe in
Yeah.
intercepted houses.
Yeah.
But yet I still use Placidus.
But yeah, so well, no, that's yeah, Placidus is the shit. Okay, so you have to understand that these applying aspects are describing the relationships that these people will have. So for moon, that's what you look at for a man, and if it's the sun, that's what you look at for a woman, and it's going to tell you how many relationships, or how many marriages, excuse me, they're going to have. So if there's no applying aspects to the sun or the moon, or if a luminary is the sun or the moon, if a luminary is in a late degree, 27, 28, 29 degrees, those are wild cards. So this is a really great kind of thing to give you a kind of a case study. So my mother was married to my father and the marriage was annulled. So they were only married for like 4 or 5 months and the marriage was annulled. And then
How did they get the pass in court? Anyway.
Well, that's a whole nother story, but anyway, she wasn't of age. She wasn't of age, man. So, and then when she got married again, she got married to a woman before it was legal in the United States. So she got married in Canada. So she has some applying aspects, but they're minor. She has no other major applying aspects to her sun or her moon. So, there you go.
I'm sitting here thinking about what applying aspects do I have to my moon?
I know we need to go figure out how many times you're going to be married. Okay, so the last thing we really want to talk about is the 12th and 8th house. What kind of issues are we going to see with that?
Okay, so those two houses, so the 12th and the 8th house, represent addictions. And that can cause a big problem.
The 8th house as well?
Yeah, the 8th house and the 12th house represent addictions, but in different types of addictions. The 8th house represents... The 8th house is like the crack house of the zodiac. And the 12th house is like the methadone clinic or the heroin, the opium den. The 8th house, they both represent addictions, but the 8th house represents more of the grittier side, the escapist, dealing with crisis, dealing with trauma type addictions, and then the 12th house is more of like the escapism aspect of addiction. Like for example, I have literally nothing going on in the 12th house in my chart. My 8th house, however, is fully packed.
It's a hot mess.
Yeah, it is. And the 8th house ruler is making a hard aspect to my moon. That's also one thing you want to look for. You want to see if that person has the 8th or 12th house ruler making hard aspects to a personal planet, namely the sun or the moon. I would say the moon more than anything, but still. That's somebody that can have addiction issues. I had addiction issues very badly for years. And it's just, you can sort of find out the nature of the addiction by checking out the 8th and the 12th house and their rulers and planets placed in those houses.
Yeah, and Jupiter, heavy Jupiter people, Jupiter conjunct the ascendant, Sagittarius ascendant people, you have to, it's not necessarily an addiction, it doesn't have to be.
It's like the weekend warrior placement.
Yeah, you have to realize those people want more. Jupiter wants to expand. You know, Jupiter or Sag on the ascendant is going to say, like, it's 2 a.m. The bar's just closed, but I got some liquor at the house. Those are the people who don't want to stop and they want more. So they are really fun, but you have to be aware of the fact that the propensity for addiction should be not ignored.
Through overindulgence.
Right. Right. Yeah. Venus. What about Venus? How can Venus contribute to that?
Well, first off, Venus has a lot to do with your self-esteem. Mm-hmm. So if you see somebody who has Venus making, and actually I've seen it a lot with Pluto in conjunct Venus. So you'll see it in this Pluto and Scorpio generation. You'll see it a lot with Venus in Gemini or Venus in Aries. They tend to devaluate themselves and they become addicted to anything that makes them feel a little bit more worthy as a person. So that doesn't necessarily make for a propensity for addiction all the time, but it can also make them addicted to people. It can make them clingy, it can make them codependent, and that's a different form of addiction all on its own. And also, really, really heavy Saturn people. Saturn is actually, they say that Neptune rules alcoholism, but Saturn heavy people tend to drink more than most. They tend to be the ones that are very, into alcohol because Saturn's such a restrictive energy. And you'll see somebody that a lot of times works very hard, but also drinks very hard too. So, but what's your take on Venus actually? Now, I'm actually a little bit curious on your stance on Venus and addiction.
So, Venus is, I think you're right as far as it making us, has to do with our self-esteem. But Venus wants to be comfortable. And that's how Venus contributes to addiction, especially if it's in play with Jupiter or the 12th house ruler. If Venus is in play with the 12th house ruler, that's going to create a desire for comfort. So some people are going to become addicted because they have mental health issues or, there's something else going on in their life. Some people will become addicts because it's there and it feels good and there's no other real good reason for it. That's when Venus is going to come into play. So when you see Venus in the 12th house, you need to watch out for it. I mean, it's not necessarily a game changer, but I mean, somebody with 12th house Venus. I know somebody with a very prominent 12th house Venus.
And they've
And
addiction issues, correct?
yeah, because it almost like does this thing where love is put in this tiny little box that they can't really access. Okay. So then they're going to want to figure out, how do I feel good about me, and how do I feel good about life? And a lot of times that's the way to do it. So the person I know with the 12th house Venus, that's really actually very prominent 12th house Venus, because it's conjunct her sun as well, is somebody who's a sex addict.
Yeah,
And it, that makes
the individual I know of the 12th house Venus, it's ruling the 7th house, it's conjunct the moon, it's at home in Libra, and it's buried in the 12th house. And this is a person that has been known to have affairs, has had horrendous substance abuse problems, like unending problems, and is very secretive about his addictions and his love life, and he doesn't really even understand it himself. It actually is only really the negative and dark aspects of it are only really unlocked whenever alcohol is involved or some sort of substance is involved too, because the 12th house is about hidden addictions, and it can a lot of times release a lot of what's buried in the 12th house.
right, right. So okay, so really quick, the last thing that we'll say about houses and rulers and all that is the fifth house. So the fifth house
Gam-
is what?
Gambling.
Gambling. Cannot always, man. Like, okay, so I know this chick, she's got Uranus in the fifth house, and it's aspecting, it's actually trining her Venus. And she loves the boys. I mean, like, she will call me up and she'll be like, okay, there's a new guy. Will you check him out? And there's a new guy every week, because Uranus is there. She's like, whatever goes. And it's making this really nice, easy aspect to Venus. So it feels good. The fifth house is really, it's fun, it's recreation, it's procreation, it's love affairs. The fifth
Wow.
house is usually not super heavy, but if it's in really bad shape, how do you feel about that?
You have to be really careful. They can be really, really fun people, but the preponderance of STDs is actually much higher. I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding.
He's done research on this, you guys.
I know people. Anyway, like, hey, look, the Mars in the 5th house, and also it depends on how it's aspected, but for the most part,
Always.
Mars in the
Always.
5th house is the baby daddy placement.
Do you I really right now I want to pull up like Old Dirty Bastards chart or like DMX and figure out like where their Mars is in their fifth house, right?
Yeah, no, the 5th house is all about, it's about fun, but it's also about risk. It's about having a lot of casual sex, being promiscuous, loving life, and not liking condoms.
No, like it kind of.
And just praying everything works out for the best.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Also, you ever know, say, what's your opinion of Venus in a fire sign?
It depends on the fire sign. I feel like they play so differently. They're going to be very passionate. And that's the only blanket statement I can make. Whatever that passion is, I don't know. I don't know the house. I don't know how it's aspected.
Okay, well, you'll take it from a dude's perspective that knows a bunch of dudes. And also, with all the fire in my chart, I love people that are heavy in fire. And I know a lot of people with fire Venuses. They're like the I love hookers and strippers kind of aspect. I like
Okay.
the path to least resistance.
So take everything Mike says with a grain of salt, because literally he's here to piss you off.
No, I've seen
Um,
it. Oh my god, I've seen it in play.
Yeah, I'm
Also,
really angry right now because like I have a son who has a Venus in Leo, okay? I like to think that he's very loyal and he will love his mama and his sisters all his life, okay? Don't
was it
don't
making a
fuck that
train
up.
to? Was it making a train or to Saturn or anything like that, or a sextile?
I'll have to go pull it up, man. Mike, you store charts in your brain, like nobody I've ever met. So, okay, the point we're making here is you really, really want to check out, you want to see the condition of the sun, the moon, you want to see Venus, what it's doing. You really want to check out the seventh house ruler. You want to
Yeah.
check out the eighth house ruler. The 12th house ruler is probably one of the biggest that's going to give you, right off the bat, is this person a giant waving red flag? And do I want to walk into that? you can't fix everybody, so just accept that, right?
Yep. Venus is what a man loves. Venus is how a woman expresses her femininity. Mars is how you bang.
Yeah, Mars is Brittany's little motto for Mars is how you fucking how you fight. And that's all you got to remember. Actually, my son's Venus is actually making a square to Saturn, so that'll tone him down a little bit. But he's also got Mars and Scorpio, so God help us all. So yeah,
Scorpio
Mars is,
people can be oh my god, they're nasty. They're not all nasty, but for the most part, they're nasty. I have a buddy with Mars and Scorpio, and it's squaring my moon. But he literally, and he thinks it's funny. He blows up my DMs on the daily with porn.
just being bros. Okay, so
I thought you liked bro. Never
mind. I'll give everybody my little tip. All right, this isn't going to work in every situation. If you've been seeing somebody for a little bit, especially this is for women. Women are usually the ones who are going to want to go pull up a natal chart and come prepared. He doesn't know his birth time. You don't want to look like a creeper. You go to a family function, okay? You got to. What? You can't pull his medical records. You gotta have like ID for that. You can't just stroll in there and be like, yo, I want to see this person's birth chart. You can't do that shit. Okay, so you go to a family function, all right, and you start talking about your sister, your cousin, and they had a baby, and they had the baby. Make it something about the time somebody had a baby. Okay, so like my sister, she went into the hospital and she had this baby at 2 a.m, and make a story out of it, okay? But you got to talk to his mama, okay? Because then guaranteed his mama is going to tell you that man you are dating's birth story complete with the time, okay? You may get more information that you want to know, but mothers will always talk about the births of their children, and they will tell you the birth time. So that will give you the birth time without seeming like a total creep. Like, hey, I'm just having a nice, pleasant conversation with your mother.
Mm-hmm.
That's my tip.
And if they have their moon in Cancer, they'll love that anyway.
They'll love it anyway. That's right. So, this is natal charts. How check out a natal chart for red signs and red flags, not red signs, red flags.
Make sure you tune into our next episode. We will be going over more in-depth analysis, like how two people, how their chemistries blend, how relationships play out with each other based on synastry aspects and composite aspects. And you can feel free to reach us at outrageastrology@gmail.com. We will try our best to respond to any comments and questions. We also do offer consultations if you would like to seek either of our expertise in a more in-depth manner.
All right. Thanks. Until next time, this is Outrage Astrology. I'm Brittany.
Thanks, guys. This is Mike.
You've been listening to Outrage Astrology. Make sure to subscribe and review us wherever you get your podcasts.